will have a look how much time. Can kill this and have a look. That's correct. Perfectly. So the recording is starting in this minute. So Anthony, when I'm allowed to start, we can start. Okay. I think we can start. Anthony, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, perfect. So then let's start. We have around 45 minutes, I see on my timetable. So let's start. Okay, very welcome after the keynote to MEC. MEC is back, our exchange or the exchange conference, the best worldwide. So thank you very much to the exchange team and the team behind the scenes to organize this conference. You are here in the session Best Practices for Insider Risk and Communication Compliance in Exchange Online. I promoted this topic and I love this topic because these are two amazing tools, but we have to learn something about it and we have to learn how to use it and how it works with Exchange Online and how we can use these tools. So very welcome. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or type in the chat. I will make stop between the main topics and the introduction and at the end, so that you can gather it. We can have a little bit of Q&A and also answering your questions. And yes, I have a lot of slides, but you will get the slide at the end, and the session is recording. So hopefully everything is fine for you. If you have any questions, feel free. Anthony also will help me in the background a little bit. So let's start with best practices for insider risk and communication compliance in Exchange Online. My name is Raphael Köllner. I'm MVP for Office Apps and Services or Microsoft 365, also for Azure. And I'm one of the Microsoft regional directors, and I'm the general manager of a Microsoft partner and a law firm here in Germany, in Europe. I'm organizing also some of community events like SharePoint Saturdays and Office 365. If you have any questions, feel free to use Twitter, LinkedIn, feel free to ask in the chat or email me, especially Exchange Online. So let's start and have a look at the learning objects. We will talk about compliance. We will talk about insider risk management and communication compliance and how we can use these tools for Exchange and Exchange Online, especially how we can help, how these tools can help the company protect for example, insiders, how we can fulfill regulations. I bring you some regulations with me, especially one from Germany. Germany is also a very good demo country demo country for regulations and policies. So you hear me, I'm from Germany, so I have a lot of examples for these policies and tools. And we'll talk a little bit about data privacy and best practices. I'm the guy who, very often make these projects and implemented insider risk solutions and communication compliance in a lot of enterprise companies. So let's start and have a look at the agenda. We will talk a little bit about introduction and compliance. We will talk about the overview, communication compliance and insider risk, best practices, and Q&A also while the session. So I'm very happy that you are here, and let's start and let's talk about insider risk and communication compliance with Exchange Online. And I found, so let's have an introduction. And I found such an amazing picture when I from the Microsoft Stock Pictures when I talked about when I'm talking about and thinking about insider risk and the insider and people who are talking or sending emails with information we don't want, or which rough information in it. And yes, as a compliance officer, as a data privacy officer, as a security officer, often you have to look into the eyes of the tiger. And so I love these picture for an introduction. Yes, when you have a look into the statistics, yes, you have insider, and yes, also you have issues and challenges with people on different compliance channels. Is it Exchange? Is it Microsoft Teams posting things that we don't want, that don't compare to the code of conduct of companies and don't compare with the regulations? So know your insider, know your employees, know your company. And if you have a look at it a little bit deeper, I ask these questions from me when I start also with creating the session. Do you know your insiders? Do you have an insider risk management? So yes, in my company and my customer, we have insider risk management. Do you know how much data will be transferred? Which data will be transferred? So do we have a data classification, for example? Hopefully the most companies since the 3 years create a data classification. And also, do you have tools to enforce the code of conduct, control the code of conduct of your company, and enforcing the regulations? For example, and I have the example today with me about the stock market, which we can fulfill, for example, with communication compliance, and which is allowed to control the communications via the regulations, via law. So let's have a little bit deeper and go to the overview, why we need the tools, why it can be a good solution to control the communication, to help you and help your company, protect your company, and protect also your employees. And when we have a look, and this is a modern world of hybrid meetings, and yes, we see here a woman on the right side typing a laptop, and yes, that's the Microsoft Teams meeting on it, and there's also a guy in the middle. He has a tablet and also with Microsoft Teams in it. So we have a hybrid meeting, and we're working together, and we're working with internal and external people and employees together. And in this modern world, it is fast. It is chat based and emails, very short emails. I'm sending a lot of emails like a chat also today using Microsoft Teams, comparing to it, and at the same time, and sending emails with my work results to my boss, or for example, or to my boss and my customer, and all of this. And yeah, these modern hybrid worlds need to be controlled, need to be controlled in a time of communication compliance, communication between the guys and people. And also we have, and when we have a statistic, one of these people are an insider. So maybe working for another company at the same time, or starting to work at another company, or telling people on the birthday party of their child about insider information, or downloading a lot of data, sending informations. Or I have a very good example from last week. There was a Power Automate workflow with Exchange that every attachment of an email will be proceed to OneDrive and then sending via email to the third-party company, to another company, so that they get all of the information via transfer mechanism of Exchange. And this we need to control, this we need to see, and this we need to prevent that information goes out. So communication compliance, insider risk, and DLP is a very good combination. So let's have a look a little bit deeper. And let's talk, and this is the first one, so we talk some minutes about communication, about compliance and regulations, because with these tools we can fulfill regulations, and we need them to fulfill some of these regulations. When we have a look at compliance and regulations, what does include all of these compliance? I'm talking about compliance. So what means compliance? What is a part of it? Whenever we have a look, we have hundreds of compliance guidelines. Around the world, I start to collect, and I collect around the world more than 15,000 compliance guidelines from law, from different national authorities, for example, legal cases, and hopefully you see some of your local compliance guidance like GDPR, in Europe. HIPAA, for example, you see here HIPAA from US, e-discovery as a tool to help them, PCI DSS, for example, ISO certification, and all of these functionality tools and regulations, and we need and we can fulfill with Microsoft PureView, and insider risk and communication compliance are a part of these Microsoft PureView software products. And when we have a deeper look, and I bring you some of my informations in this session, you see international standards, industry standards, and regional standards. I choose here Germany, for example, or Europe, and we have also industry standards and, for example, all the international ones. And we have a look deeper and deeper. And when we go, for example, on a worldwide chart, we see here more and more regulations we need to fulfill. And some of these, for example, for the trading market, and we will talk about for these as an example in this session, we need to fulfill. We need tools to fulfill. We don't want to hire for automatically functionality people or a woman, a man who's sitting there and clicking there every time or looking audit logs or like this. So we need a tool for that, and then we have insider risk and communication compliance as a tool to fulfill some of these regulations. And to fulfill all of these regulations, we have the Microsoft PureView. And yes, I have a session a little bit later about Microsoft PureView, and we're talking about to fulfill all of the most of these regulatories. And for insider risk and communication compliance, I go a little bit deeper and have a look, for example, which regulations we can fulfill. And for example, we can fulfill some legal cases and case law. For example, in the trading market, we have European law here, also in the stock market, also the same. National stock law in France and Germany, also in UK, in Spain. Also, I talked about the US is the same. And we have company law, code of conduct. We can fulfill, for example, with communication compliance itself. And if you said, okay, in Germany and Europe, it's very critical with data privacy, recording, scanning the emails, scanning the chats in Teams. Is it allowed? It's often I get also from my customers, Raphael, that's not allowed. We can't scan. With the working council don't want this and all of this. And then I said, okay, let's have a look in the European law. And I said I'm from Europe, so let's start with the European law, okay? And I translate one of the parts of the European law or European legal here, and you have a look at here. We have all of the links in it so that you can read the full set of rules. And when we have a look here and see here on the left side, the EU 2006, so it's from 2006, 73 EG, and on this part of this regulation, we see the recording of telephone conversation or electronic communications, email, chat is electronic communications, related to client orders shall to be compliant with the chapter of fundamental rights of the European Union and shall be sufficient to strange investor protection. Okay, now someone mute me. Please don't mute me. I need to talk. Okay, going forward, what is the main point? You can record and you can control the communication because of the strength of investor protection, improved market surveillance, and to increase legal certainty in the interest of the invest firms and clients. So protect the invest firms, protect us as the clients in the trading market, in the stock market. This allows you to control the communication, control chats, control telephony conversation, and this is a legal base, for example, in Europe to use communication compliance itself. So we have law that we can use communication compliance, could control the communication or control what happened in exchange and and some of you asking, okay, what happened? What are the consequences? Okay, typical consequences when you find someone in this stock market, you have personal interviews, you have warnings, there's termination of the contract. So it's very hard consequences, and that's what we can also automatically, for example, and this is what my favorite is not a warning or a termination of a contract to sending the people, for example, beware of it. Here's video session about compliance of and communication or of code of conduct, so that we can help. So I talked a lot about communication compliance, and Insider will be the next one. So let's start with the stock market and communication compliance in combination with exchange when there are no questions. No hands, no chat. Okay, I will go forward. So let's talk about communication compliance. Communication compliance is a part of the compliance center, the PureView center. You need an E5 for every people you control. So every people who are part of a policy in communication compliance, you need the compliance licensing or a Microsoft 365 E5, which the compliance licensing will be a part of it. We will talk a little bit later. And when we go into the documentation, we see, okay, what you do with communication compliance, you configure a policy. So before you configure a policy, communication compliance will not work. So you need to configure a policy. With a policy, you get information, you can investigate, you can remediate, and you can monitor all of this in the same time. So you monitor, and then you can remediate, and you can make, for example, calls with the people or terminate the contract at the end when something happened really in a worst case. And yeah, what are the typical use cases? Typical use cases out of my best practice, out of my practice, we have people, they are on the go and traveling and posting something and bringing informations very short, or I talked also very short to another company, for example, or chatting to as a misuse, sending emails to the wrong people, for example. So combination of communication compliance and DLP will be here the best solution out of my view. And also we have sometimes issues between companies because the husband works at one company, the wife at the other company, or in the stock market. And this is one of the examples I started with and will be as a red line through this session is the stock market. So we have people, for example, they are working at the customer itself, helping with their money, investing money and all of this. And on the other, and 3 years, 4 years later, the guy said, okay, I want to switch my job role and want to go to the trading department and stock department and want to make, create a stock portfolio with the company I worked before. And this is not allowed. They need some times between it. So that the people don't help the company or don't work with the company, consult the company, and at the same time work with the same stocks of the company at the same time. So that's not allowed. That is a very high level explanation for this use case. And then we need, for example, communication compliance to control these at the beginning or control these in the transfer phase to the new job role. And this is one, for example, of the use case in the red line in this session. You see here, I talked about the licensing, and you see here E5, E3, and compliance license. The E5 compliance add-on is also fine, or insider risk and communication add-on. That's the same for communication compliance and insider risk. If you have the licensing for one of them, you have the licensing for both. So you can use both one and also, and this is really great, you can get all of these information from communication compliance, also from insider risk, to Azure Sentinel, and there's a connector to sending communication compliance information to Azure Sentinel. And this is a hint for enterprise companies and finance companies, also companies in the critical IT creatives area. Please connect the information to Azure Sentinel. So very, very interesting. Then you have different roles. For you as an IT guys, hopefully that's totally clear. You have the exchange roles. With the exchange administrator roles, it don't help you a lot. So you need the communication compliance or the information compliance editor, and you have different roles. For example, the analyst or the investigator. Analyst is the most role I give this role to employees, because the analyst will have a look at the emails, for example, and and we'll see, okay, is it forbidden to send this email? Is it okay? Is it false true in a part of these policies? So very, very interesting. So I use the communication admin and compliance analyst more and more to see. And before I start all of this, and I create my communication compliance information or roles, policies at the end. The first thing is you have to activate the audit log search. Mostly in all companies, I see the audit log search were activated. So if not, please activate them. This is a pre-requirement for communication compliance. Also with Exchange Online, you have to activate the audit logs. And for me, you need a team. So activate the audit logs, creating a compliance team with compliance officer, human resources, data privacy, IT security, and in Germany, France, for example, also the working councils together. Then plan your strategy, plan your policies you want to use with communication compliance. For example, have a look into the planning part. We have a use case, for example, this use case with the stock market. We can define a target. Okay, we want to find people they switching their job role and will start to trade, and we need to trade with stocks, and we need to find them, for example, that they don't talk about their old company with their company they're working before, and don't talk to the colleagues where they're working before. So we have information barriers, for example, and before they switch the department, we start with communication compliance, and then we bring the people with into the rules of information barriers. So very interesting. So they find the target. Do we have a data privacy issue or not? So checking with data privacy, then define the group. So make an Azure security group, or define we have only 2 people, so we can define only the 2 people into the policy. Then define the reviewer, the analysts. That's 1 or 2 people only, so we can't define the group. So you need 1 or 2 people, for example, out of the compliance team, the compliance officer who controls this stock trading and to fulfill the regulations in stock trading, and then go to and define your rules also with Exchange. When we go a little bit forward, I will go forward about the planning. This is only for you. I put it in the slides for you, a little bit detailed information about planning. And for me, and this is very interesting, okay, when we plan all of this, we want to start, for example, we want to control the exchange and the exchange emailing, and which communication types are possible. And yes, it's exchange. We can find exchange here. So we have a look at the exchange mails and attachment. And the next question, the customer asked me, okay, when I can control mails, that's fine. Attachments, okay. What is when I have a picture in my exchange email, or a picture as an attachment? Can we control it too? Yes. If it's a JPEG or PNG, we use OCR options, so we can control also the information on the picture with communication compliance. And hopefully in the future, yes, we have also connectors to Zoom, Slack, and all of this. And hopefully in the future, and this is currently a little problem, that we have also the voice messages as in a control way, So for example, the voice recorder in Exchange, when you make a Teams call and you don't get a connection to the people, and you have a recording on the voice call, and it's only sending the MP3 file, it's not controlled. With sending the transcription, with the transcription we can work, and we can use communication compliance. So it's also very important that in the future we will see more and more supported channels. So we have the email sending, that's clear, and then Teams also the chats, that's also fine. And we will see in the future also the recordings when transcription is on, that we can check them through, and also the voice recorder. So we will have a full set of controlling and supported communication channels with communication compliance. Here's a little check based for creating a policy. I go forward because we want to create a policy together. We can use also sensitive information types. So we have a keyword list, for example. That's what I use for the stock example, and adding some sensitive information, for example, bank information, all of this, so that the people don't talk about the bank information or sending the bank information to the people to the guy who changed the department to stock trading. And we can use it in different languages. That's very important. We have supported languages here: Chinese, English, French, German, Italy, Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish. Not in all languages, but I see on the roadmap there will more and more language supported in the future. So currently, yeah, sensitive information, 210 policies we can add. And at the end, when we do all of this, you see here, we run the policy and we see the reports of the policy, and we can see, okay, what is sending? Do we have matches? For example, here in this example, we have 299 matches. I started with analyzing, so some of this are true false errors, so I have only 269 issues and challenges. When we have a look a little deeper the reporting, and this is what the analysts will do. You see here are the emails, the mails, and you see here your weekly PIM major updates. So yes, for the demo environment of my demo company, I'm using here also communication compliance, and you see here with these icon, you see these are emails, and yes, it will be found also the default emails from Microsoft sending to the guys. But this is very, very interesting that you can make here a check if the email is correct. Is it, what you have to prevent, or is it an email like this, your weekly PIM, and that's fine. That's we don't look for. And when we go a little bit deeper, we can filter with the UI to, for example, sender, recipients. So we can filter to exchange attributes, exchange things, so that we can, okay, we filter only on emails, we filter only sender, for example, me or the guy. We will see, okay, we are recipient domains, for example, the people they trade the information. So we have to look only of these information, so we can filter it to exchange, especially to these special attributes of the exchange email. So that's very fast. So you see 299 is only for, that's the default email. So when you check these in a typical enterprise company, you find here around 100,000 items, and then you have to filter a lot of. And when you filter, for example, also to the email address, you can filter and you find at the end 10 items, for example, with are the critical ones, and then you can say, okay, we have to start and give the people an information, for example, the manager. So we have to go into the escalation. You see here, as an example, we have an email in communication compliance. This is the email with PIM requests. We can tag it as escalation, or we take this email to escalation for investigation. We can add, we can go there and send it to the manager also of the guy, or we can make a legal hold on it. And this is very cool. What I like is use Power Automate. With Power Automate, you can automate all of these, what happens after you find someone or you find an email in communication compliance which is not allowed, or which is sending information to the wrong guy, or which sending information in the stock case to their colleagues before, to get information about the company they want to trade in the trade with the stocks in the future, so that you can have a look at here. So at the REALS communication compliance is here to see who speak, which is other, which content. And for me, this is a best practice. Talk to the guys. For example, in this finance institute, we talk with the guys that, okay, you want to switch the department. We start with communication compliance in the beginning to the switch, and 6 months after you switching, and then we end the communication compliance policy with you. So then we think then everything is fine and you know what you have to do. So we control the misuse hopefully no one will send information to another company extra. But this is an insider risk topic, and this is the next topic. So we also see, do we have a compliance problem in the company? You can fulfill the regulations. And what I like is, and I mostly like, we can control also the code of conduct. So we have a second example, for example, you go and say, okay, I want to control our code of conduct so that no harassment in email. So don't go to another people and say you are and all of this that we don't want. And then we control, for example, not 100%. So in a lot of companies, I have a policy that we only control 10% of the email communication. So we make we go there and said, okay, 10% will be controlled automatically, and then we have the analysts. They have a look at 1% of these 10%, and then only have a look at the main worst case mails, and then we go to the employee and said, okay, that's not allowed, and please take another speech, please, don't do this, and all of this. So this is communication compliance, and I go forward and have a look at the chat at first. No question. You can ask question. No question. Okay, but we go forward and have a look a little bit deeper and insider risk management. So insider risk management meets exchange, and I know I start with communication compliance and has a reason, and you will see the reason in the next slide. So insider risk management, and I talked before about communication compliance and people and bad people. They're sending information outside of the company, and these are insiders. Often you find them with communication compliance. So out of my practice, yes, with communication compliance we find these insider, but we want to do more. For example, people, they terminate their contract and said, okay, we go to another company. Then with communication compliance, we see, okay, they are talking with other guys. They're sending a lot of emails outside. But when we focused on insider risk management, and every company has an insider. When we have a look at the statistic, every team with more than 10 people have an insider in it. Misuse or extra, or with a reason to take information to another company with different reasons, we have insiders. And one of these guys are an insider. And my question was, okay, if we create an insider risk policy, also with communication compliance, we have legal, or we have laws that we can say, okay, we have this use case to control the stock market, for example, control the people who trading with the stock. On the other side, with insider risk, we have to think about the motivation. And when we know the motivation, we can create policies too. And for me, have a look at the motivations. Often you have a bad team, a bad boss, contract cancellation is what I say, terminate the contract, or we have no company feeling, a bad company culture, and that are the most statistics, the most reasons the people said when I ask them. So I ask around 1,000 people in the last 3 years, talking with compliance teams also, and they said, okay, these are the most 4 topics on motivations for insider risk to sending information to another company. Often there's also money, but money is not the first one, so not the first 4 ones. So money is something you can type here for a question mark, and you have something like it's not my day. It's not. I have a bad feeling today. So often that's a misuse sometimes. So these are the motivations, and this is very critical when you have these insiders sending information, making data leaks, breach the confidentiality, breaking the NDA. We have thieves of intellectual property. That's very, very, that's very bad for the company too. Insider trading here, yes, that's why we start with communication compliance and stock trading. So insider trading, that's also, you find these insider via communication compliance or also with insider risk. So let's start and have a look at it. And I bring you some stats with me. And you see here, I find the Finance Online, which collects the stats from Goldstein, Bitglass, IBM, and all of this. And you see here, how expensive is an insider threat, and you see here it's millions, 14 millions, and you see here also in these statistics why they did this, and when you compare it, and being a little bit bigger, when you compare it to what I get as an answer from my customers, also from the compliance officers of my customers here, okay, what are the motivations? Yes, money is here a little bit more, but when you see here, it's, data breaches are caused by insider threats. Also insider threats are very, very important, and you have to look at it. When you don't have an insider risk management today, you have to start with this. And yes, start with Exchange. Exchange is the first, is out of my best practice, the first one. Start with Exchange, because email and sending outside is email. For the most people outside, it's not chat, it's email. Also, sharing data via OneDrive or SharePoint is also email. You send an email. So email and Exchange is the first tool I want to focus, and I focused at all of my companies, customers, also in my company, to focus insider risk search on email and on Exchange. And when we have the team together, the same here, a compliance officer, working council, all of this, with the working council or the insider risk team is a boss task, is a part of the boss level. So a little bit more than communication compliance. Communication compliance is under the compliance officer, but insider risk for me, that is a part under the executive board. So insider risk is boss level task. And when we have a look have a look a little bit deeper about it and have a look at the insider risk. What do you need? And I have a little checklist for this. So we need a tool, insider risk. We need a process. We need the motivation. We need the approval from data privacy and IT securities here in Germany, also from the working council. And we need a team to check it, to give the information to the manager, and to organize all of this. When we have all of this and we have a look a little bit deeper to insider risk, we go to the technical ones. And yes, we need communication compliance for me, starting with communication compliance at first, then roll out insider risk, focused on Exchange, and then focused on SharePoint and Teams for data loss prevention. So combine with DLP, and then combine with zero trust. So you have this cycle of what we need and what are my recommendations to start with this. And when you have a look, and this is very interesting, when you have a look at this insider risk tool and you start with this, you see here there's a checklist, relatively new. You have the same checklist for communication compliance. So you turn on the auditing. Yes, you turn it on communication compliance. You don't need it at the same time. And then you can scan for potential insider risk. This is a general scan, need 48 hours. We have a look at my demo tent a little bit later to see what happened, and then create your policies, your insider risk policy focused on Exchange and focused on, you see here, mail, for example, or bad FTE. You create one, and this is the same like how you created, the same for like for communication compliance. You have the case, you have the target, you have the endpoints, for example, here to Exchange. So sending informations outside are here the typical Exchange one. You have a lot more for sharing information, connecting information with a connector and all of this. So create policy, trigger the event. The event is the sending an email, for example, out of the Exchange view, detecting and warning, and then reactions. And this you can can make an automatic workflow via Power Automate, and that's what I do too. So very interesting what you can do. And as an overview, yes, you see here the demo or the template policies, the sub policies, the optional, and what you're detecting. This is for you as an overview, but we want to have a view on Exchange. So let's have a look at Exchange especially, and then a little bit of demoing. So I have a look at Exchange, and you see here you have a policy indicator. When you have a look at the setting tools and setting of insider risk, you see here the policy indicator, which are an indicator to see, okay, it's an insider risk, it's in fault, so we need to investigate. So these are the two ones, are sending emails with attachment. So attachment is included, like communication compliance, to recipients outside of the organization that are policy indicator. Then and this is in preview, and that's what I love too, combination with Microsoft Teams and the Exchange group mailbox. So click it here, and you have insider risk also for chats, for group mailboxes, under listing, and all of this. So using also Teams for insider risk management and control teams. That's both what I like. And also what I configured is the intelligent detectors. So I added domains, for example, Gmail, Outlook.com, and all of this. I want to cover, and which are not allowed. So when someone's sending emails to not allowed domains, you will see it here in insider risk, and you have allowed domains. For example, we have Microsoft.com, for example, that's allowed, and that's included multi-sub-level domains included, and that's allowed, and that's fine. So what you see more and more, yes, you can use Exchange mail flow policies, but it moves from time to time more to insider risk. So please use insider risk for this. Make a clear configuration, and at the end, Exchange sending you the notification about it, and use insider risk in combination with communication compliance and DLP. So insider risk, communication compliance, and DLP are my recommendations. But before we go forward and answering questions, let's have a look at it. And I end the slideshow and have a little bit of a look into the compliance center, and starting with communication compliance. And then with insider risk. So for me, starting every time with communication compliance, is it a hard fact that you have to start with communication? No, you don't. You can use also insider risk without communication compliance, but my recommendation is start with communication compliance, then insider risk. Before you start with communication compliance, it's not a hard fact, but out of best practice, start with data classification and with DLP policies, because at the end, when you configure policies, you need this information. For example, you need the DLP policy you can go for. And when we have a look, for example, here, it's a compliance in financial environments, and we have in communication compliance the topic about stock market and stock market trading and all of this. Hopefully you remember. Let's have a look at it, and hopefully it's a live demo. It will go a little bit faster. If not, I will start with a new policy. Okay, let's start with a new policy. That's sometimes a little bit faster. So have a look, for example, at custom policy. We start with a custom policy, MAC XO. So we're talking about this every time communication compliance and insider risk. At first, it's Exchange Online. So you need your mailboxes in Exchange Online, then you can control it. That's one of the things you need. So MAC XO test, for example, test. Description is okay. Users, only one user or selected users. For example, here we take some users. We have Gracie. That's a typical demo environment. I think Gracie. Yeah, Grady, and Miriam. They want to switch to another department. Then exclude some users, and I don't want to exclude someone, and the reviewer. So we need me as a reviewer. You can also add external ones as a reviewer, but I need me here, so that's fine. Then we have a look, okay, locations. Okay, we don't want Teams, we don't want Yammer. We want Microsoft Exchange. We also can import third-party ones. You need the connector for WhatsApp, Slack, and all of this. So, but we want Exchange, so attachments and Exchange mailboxes. Then the conditions, inbound, outbound, internally. For this stock market, I want only internally. The text communication between these two, for example, these two parts, these two users, for example. Okay, now we add these. Then we have a conditions here, and you see here message is sent, for example, contains some of any words here, any of these words, and we have here, for example, words like Microsoft. So that are the people who working with the stocks of Microsoft, so helping and consulting them. So Microsoft, for example, we're putting in Microsoft Germany and all of of these, so Germany, so we can put in the words. So the compliance team put here into the words. We use also OCR, and we said, okay, which percent, and 10% no, we want 100% because it's a stock regulated. And then we said, okay, yeah, that's privacy by design. Please reduce. No, we don't want to reduce. And then we create a policy. So we have a suspension over these two people we talked at the beginning before, and let's status need some minutes to activate, and then we see the items. And for example, here I make it some days before. You see here the 299, and now we have 482, which is pending, so false true. And we have to look at it if there are some bad things in it. So all fine. Yeah, we can go here with the analyzing team. You see it here. Have a look at the emails. So we have to wait a little bit that we see here. Yeah, here we have the Azure ID. Perfectly. Nah, the PIM. We want to use the PIM email. We see here the PIM email, and you see it on my screenshots, and said, okay, have a look at the user history, or escalate this one, or automate with Power Automate at the end, so we can work with Exchange emails here very well. We can have a look, a preview at it. You need the role, so the communication compliance analyst to see the text. So you have different roles, for example, only the administrator who don't need to see the email. So very cool. You have such a workflow to working and control the email communication with communication compliance. And at the end, and I have 1 or 2 minutes, hopefully we can have a look at insider risk. And for insider risk manager, I do the same. I creating policies and going to policies and create a very fast policy together. You see here one of my screenshots to create a policy, and you see here, okay, what we want. We want, for example, general data leaks. We have DLP, physical bending connectors. We can add it, triggering events. Triggering events, you remember, sending emails outside is also a triggering mail, triggering event. We include users. Okay, we include all users. We don't know especially. We want to go special SharePoint sites, all of this. No, we don't. We want to control everything. We want to choose a trigger. And for example, we want only these sharing and email. So we use this trigger, or that's why I said, please start with DLP or matching to a DLP policy. And then we have indicators, for example, sending 50 of activities. We make for it 40 of activities. You can make the default ones, or you can choose here, okay, not SharePoint. We want to here sending emails out of the organization, for example. Then you can put this and make the indicators overview, and then you have finished. So you have very fast, and you see here also the sequence of detection. I added everything. You can customize these too. And then at the end, you say, okay, finished. And you have a communication compliance policy and an insider risk policy focusing on exchange and on emailing, on sending emails and sharing information. Very, very fast. You can do it also. For me, I do it via UI because the compliance officer do this, and the compliance officer are not a DLP or not an IT guy. So when we have a look at mailing here, for example, no indicators have selected for this policy. So we see here a warning so that my insider risk can help, or what I can do with it. So at the end, I think we are a little bit at the end of the session. And I said, yeah, congratulations. We have insider risk and communication compliance together with Exchange, focusing on Exchange. And I love this very, very much because, all of these compliance tools at the back end, we have also a lot of Exchange. So Exchange is my compliance server, my compliance love. So I love this, not especially of all of these use cases. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, now is the time. Feel free. We have the demo. Feel free sending me an email, chat with me at Mac conference. Have a lot of fun. We have some great sessions following. Also me with preview overview in 1 hour, but we have also a lot of other sessions, and hopefully I bring you a little bit nearer and talking about these wonderful two tools and how you can use it to control your mail flow. And what is the future? And these tools are the future of insider risk and communication compliance, the future of controlling and protecting your company and also protecting your employees. So the stock market at the end, the stock market example which I choose at the beginning, and we have a legal basement for this. So it's agreed by law that we can control the conversation. Help the people too. So often it's a misuse. They're sending emails to the wrong guy or the wrong woman, and yeah, it's a misuse. And you can talk with them, say, hey, please take aware of it. Or configuration exchange policy, for example, via DLP or directly in exchange, that they can't send emails to these people. But this is a before they change the department and then go into with information barriers so that they can't send emails. But yeah. That's a part, and yeah, hopefully I can help you. If you have any question, feel free, raise your hand, use your chat, use my email address, use this email address for Teams too. It's a Teams address too, and sending me emails or whatever. So thank you very much. I don't know how many minutes we have. I talked 3 minutes more than 45. So Anthony, feel free, come up. And if anyone has a question, feel free to ask. No one. Then I have a question at the end. Who of you is using communication compliance today or want to start? Ja, erstmal want to start after this session. No one. Okay. It's recorded, so I can understand. All fine. So yeah, I'm ready. Anthony, if no one has a question, I'm here. I'm here both days, so also tomorrow. I'm helping also the other MVPs, so feel free. It's your chance now to talk about this. Any questions to configuration or all of this? No. Okay.
Hey,
Oh,
Raphael,
there's
there's a question.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to hop in here. Somebody had asked, how do you ensure that the reviewers do not misuse their rights to check content?
Yeah. That's a very, very great question. Because the reviewers or the analyst role can have a view into all of the emails in this bunch. So for example, for insider risk, also for communication compliance. And yes, I have a best practice idea. 2 ideas to this. The first one is creating teams. So the investigators are not alone. There are 2 people. 2 people out of, we have, for example, a company with worldwide compliance team. So we have 2 people created for these financial customer. We create task forces. So every 2 people, one from Europe, one from Singapore, or one from Europe, one from US, putting them together to check these file, putting them together by random. So it's like when you fly with an airplane, you don't get friends in the cockpit. So they're mixing also the pilots. That's the same for here, mixing the compliance investigator or compliance analysts. And the third one is, control the analysts. So we have audit logs, we have all of this. So yes, you need to control. That's a task of the compliance officer or the head of the compliance team to control them too. And this is the only chance I know out of best practice what we do to prevent these issues. So thank you, Ryan. That's very interesting.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. Perhaps now would be a good time to just final thoughts and we'll wrap up. All righty. Well, Raphael, thank you so much. I think we are at the conclusion of our session for today. We have lots of other great airlift topics. Anthony, I'll hand the floor over to you. We can close out.
Yes, thank you so much for attending. We'll make sure that you have access to the recordings. They'll be available on the public website. And have a lovely day.
So thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you all. And see you in the other sessions. Bye-bye.